You're listening to Bold Hearts, Big Moves, the show for female entrepreneurs who want it all: a thriving business, deep self love, and fulfilling relationships. I'm Erin Anderson, and each week we will dive into how to set stronger boundaries, make empowered choices, and show up in life and business with boldness, authenticity, and heart. Because let's be real, the money you make is directly related to the love that you have for yourself and the strength of your relationships. So if you're ready to lead with love and make those big moves with those bold hearts, let's dive in.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Bold Hearts, Big Moves. Okay, so I have kind of an uncomfortable question for you. Have you ever been told that you're difficult? Or have you ever been shamed for trying to stand up for yourself? Yeah, I have too. I've been there, done that, but what if none of that was true? I can remember when I started my business, and even a little bit now. I've been doing business for over a decade. Um and I still have people that come to me and tell me that I'm too much, or that what I'm doing is bad for my family or bad for my kids, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's always somebody that has an opinion. But let's just say it. Difficult is often what people call women who stop letting themselves be used. Straight up. And the moment you stop overgiving, over apologizing, or explaining yourself to make someone else comfortable, all of a sudden now you're the problem. And this is something that we women deal with on sometimes even a daily basis, just because society has a box for us. And there's one end of the spectrum that says that we need to be, the girl boss and strong women, and we don't need men. That's not where I land. I'm going to tell you that much. I absolutely do need men. And I'm so grateful they're around, and I'm so grateful for the influence they've had in my life. But then there's the other side that does completely shut down and be quiet and never say anything because they're afraid to bloom. That's not who I am either. Now, I will say I've definitely lived on both sides of that spectrum. And I am not either one of them. Because again, remember, I don't need somebody to affirm to me what I already know to be true. I don't need somebody to do that. But I also don't need to hide who I am and what is true. I get to stand and be unashamed of who I am. And even when I make mistakes, I am not going to feel shame and guilt for the mistake I made. Because, well, depending on, I guess, how big the mistake is, but for the most part, I take ownership and I say, yep, I can see how it was perceived that way. Yep, I can see how that was wrong. Okay, I'm going to make amends. Back to myself. I'm going to come back to my integrity. That was a little bit out of my integrity, so thank you for pointing that out. Right? That is neither shunning or shying away, but that is also being strong. And this is the thing: is roses, they're not afraid to be beautiful. And this is kind of the direction I want you to think about today as we get into today's episode, because I want to talk about why being called difficult is often a compliment in disguise, and how every woman I know who has created a life and a business she loves has had to walk through this type of a fire to some degree, where somebody's called her gossipy or basically misjudged her completely. And if you're the peacemaker, the fixer, the helper, this one is especially for you. So let me tell you about a time when, me setting a boundary and being unwilling to be anything different or to shrink or etc. I got me being called difficult, dramatic, too much, the problem. A few years ago, there was a person in our lives, I'm talking about my family and I, who we found out was not a good person. We had opened our home to him. Uh, we were kind to him. Um, and we were actually really good friends. I mean, we did a lot of things with this particular person that we would do with people that we absolutely loved and adored. We loved his wife, we loved his kids, but one day his wife and his kids up and left him because he was abusive. And at first we tried to be really kind and loving and non and didn't take sides, like kind of bipartisan, until he decided, and it was a very scary time. I'll say this much for me, until he decided that he was entitled to my body in some way, shape, or form. That because we were friends with him, that he was somehow entitled to things that he was absolutely not entitled to. And he kept trying to push his way through to me. Now, obviously, we didn't stand for this, right? And we cut off all contact with him. We actually put a restraining order on him. Um, but a few years down the road, when he wanted to remarry, I wanted to make sure that the girl he was remarrying or wanting to marry knew the truth, because I couldn't let that stay on my conscience. And so I reached out to her and let her know my side of the story. Well, what ended up happening was uh, my religious leader at the time, had heard about this and basically called me the problem, because these people didn't want to come to church anymore. They were worried about how our church community was going to feel, um, how we were legendary in our community, as far as a group. Our church group was legendary in our community because we were inclusive, because we loved each other. And I was the problem because I said the truth. I had told the truth. And I never experienced anything like this. And I'm not going to say anything negative about my church leader at the time either. He was doing his best. Was he in the wrong? Yes. Absolutely, he was. Um, but I don't think he quite understood the gravity of the situation or what he was really doing or how bad things really were. And it really kind of shook me because I was like, I remember sitting back and thinking, am I too much? Did I do something wrong? But as I combed back through my intentions, as I combed back through my thoughts, I honestly could not find fault in anything I had done. And it was right then and there that I decided that I'm not the villain here. I just wanted to be safe and I wanted to offer knowledge and truth to someone else so that way they could make decisions for their own safety. I wanted some respect. And I wasn't being too much. What it was they were uncomfortable with what was true. And sometimes truth can rock you. Now, for the person that tried to hurt me, note that person, I'm not going to give him a pass. From my ecclesiastical leader, I'm going to give him a bit more grace because ecclesiastical leaders aren't trained always in this type of thing. They're not trauma informed. And so I get it. But I will also tell you that even though this ecclesiastical leader didn't agree with me, I did continue to tell the truth, whether he liked it or not. Because one of the things that's core about me personally is that I want truth. I want to live in truth. Boundaries shift power dynamics. People who benefit from your silence will always resist your voice. Always. People who don't want to take responsibility for their actions may accuse you of being mean, selfish, or cold. But the truth of the matter is, you're not being difficult, you're being very clear. You're living in integrity, you're living to your values, and you're not being rude, you're being rooted. You're not being harsh, you're protecting what's sacred. Because to me, again, like I said, if thinking about this, and in the story I just shared with you, I was just really clear that with what had actually happened, I wasn't turning my back on what was true. I held to it, and yeah, that made some people really uncomfortable. Because what had happened was uncomfortable. But if people really do want to change, and if they really are willing to do something different or be different, they'll let you know. They'll come to you with a humble heart and a contrite spirit. They'll come to you to apologize. But in the meantime, even if you never get that apology, at least you can feel good and in alignment with you because you stood for truth. And you never have to question your integrity because of it. Just like pruning a tree looks a little harsh from the outside, your no can look kind of offensive, or your truth can look offensive to someone else who's never seen you hold to truth or never seen you hold to a no before. If you've never been misunderstood, you might still be molding yourself to everyone else's expectations and trying to people please. And to be honest with you, you will lose people once you start setting boundaries and you start living in integrity. You will lose people who benefited from your silence. Christ did. Think about the people that walked away from him because he refused to be the king that they wanted to define. And he knows that pain. He looked at Peter and he asked, "Are you going to leave me too?" But Peter knew who Christ was and he didn't shy away from him. Thou art the Christ. Thou hast the words of eternal life. Where else would we go for that? He says. When we stay in integrity with ourselves, we attract Peters. and reject those who want to make us into something that we are not, want to define us into ways or put us into a box. It's not right. Some people loved you as long as you stayed agreeable, available, and accommodating. You get to let them go for your good and their good, because their approval isn't the reason why you're here. You're not seeking for their approval. That is not your mission and purpose, to seek for someone else's approval. That's not why you're here. Every boundary you set builds the foundation for sustainable success. And I can tell you that your capacity increases when your refusal to betray yourself increases. So they may have called you difficult. They may have called you unreasonable. They may have even turned their backs and left you. But what they really meant with those words, their actions, and their energy was, I can't use you anymore. I need to find somebody I can use. I can't put you into a box. I need to find somebody who'll fit into my box. I can't jeopardize your freedom because you won't let me. So, what does this look like in life and in business? Well, possibly in family, maybe setting a boundary around visits, in like emotional labor or how your time is spent. Maybe in business, it's saying no to lowball offers or working for free, or letting somebody else dictate how much they pay, the vague collaborations or the manipulative clients, and possibly in marriages or partnerships, it's being honest about your needs and not shrinking to keep the peace. Telling the truth. If you want the truth, tell it. So, if this is you, and if you're wondering if you are too much, I would invite you to see if you're shrinking back somewhere, and invite you to ask yourself, why? Why am I doing that? Is it because I'm afraid of being abandoned? I really need to be liked. I'm trying to fit in. Why do you feel like you have to shrink, if that's the case? Where do you think you're going to lose if you are honest, if you tell the truth? And where are you trading truth for temporary peace? So those are some questions that I'd invite you to ponder on this week. And again, if you guys would like more clarity, if you guys would like to really get some massive help in your boundary building, don't forget that I do have the Unbreakable Boundary. It's the 30-day course to help you clarify, create, and live in your boundaries and integrity in a way that nobody else can shake. We're going to talk about like how to keep your voice strong and when somebody tries to gaslight you, and how to hold the line without losing your softness. How to build upon your boundaries and to create a 6-figure business through it. And if this is something that you are ready for, click on the link below, www.erinanderson-coaching.com, my gosh, / the Unbreakable Boundary, and get started today. Because here's the thing. God knows you. God knows what he created when he created you, and he's so pleased with who you are. You get to trust that. Let people call you difficult. Let them call you whatever they call you. Let them say whatever they say. Because the truth of the matter is you're equipped by God to follow through in your mission and purpose, and you don't have to apologize for that. All right, my loves. Until next week, I will see you soon. Bye.
All right, Boundary Boss Babes. I'm super excited that you tuned in with me today. Make sure you tune in again next week as we chat about more Boundary Boss Babe topics. We're going to get into so many other things about how to set boundaries with your business, how to set boundaries with your relationships, so you can truly have the time, the money, and the flexibility that you are seeking. So tune in next week. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast. Let your other Boss Babe friends know about it. And also, if you've got any questions, make sure you submit them into the podcast by clicking on the Send Us a Text message at the bottom of the podcast description. I look forward to seeing you guys next week. See you later, Boss Babes.